أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين.
There is a question. Shaukat Saab, who is our associated with our center, has done PhD here. Now is Islamic University. Montipura, I request him to share his thoughts with us.
You all discuss online? Okay, okay. You will connect you. So anyway, this is the academic session going on. Dr. Tariq is chairing the session. You are director some session. So kindly debrief us online, please. Okay. We are audible to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Chairman of the Center for Shaykh-ul-Islam Studies, Professor G.N. Khaki Saab. Honorable Chairman of the session, Professor Tariq Ahmad Raki Saab. Respected guest who has been here in the podium, Professor Dr. Manzoor Ahmad Bhatt Saab, Director Center for this Islam Studies, SH Institute of Islam Studies, Kashmir University. Honorable guests, participants, respected faculty members of the Kashmir University, my colleagues from Kashmir University, Islamic University, participants, and research scholars. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and good afternoon to all of you. Basically, my paper is about initiation of Hadith in the subcontinent. That how Hadith was introduced as a predominant subject after the studies of Quran. Now, how this subject is related to, how my topic is related to, how my paper is related to this seminar is a fact that a personality from Central Asia who is Allama Sagani, better known as Rizuddin Sagani. He is a 12th century scholar of Hadith. He traveled India twice. At that time it was subcontinent, and he remained in Delhi and formulated a course curriculum for the Sultanate madrasas, the madrasas which were in the Tughlaq period and the times of Qutbuddin Aibak. So Qutbuddin Aibak's time, Qutbuddin Aibak. So in the time of Qutbuddin Aibak, he came to India from Baghdad. Basically, he's a Central Asian, and he prepared a curriculum for the initiation of Hadith in the subcontinent. Then our renowned scholar of Hadith in Kashmir is a 15th century dominant personality, Sheikh Yaqub Sarfi, rahmatullahi alayh. He was so much influenced by Allama Rizuddin Sagani that he wished all his life that I would have met him once. Because Yaqub Sarfi alayhi rahman was man of letters, and he visited Makkah. He instructed lessons there, and he was a student of Allama Hajri Asqalani. So what I am concerned about is that he formulated a curriculum in initiation of hadith. Because at that time, Bukhari was not, Muslim was not, I mean to say, given to the learners, the beginners of hadith. So he prepared a compendium, a text of hadith, which he introduced on the advice of the ruler of Baghdad, Mustansar Billah. And Mustansar Billah said that first of all, I will go through the whole manuscript, because he was well versed in Arabic, and he was a well-known, knowledge-loving person. So he saw that he has prepared a manuscript of 2,272 ahadith. 2,272 ahadith. This book, then he initiated a dialogue on this book in Baghdad, that kindly give me your objections, kindly give me your remarks, kindly give me your say about my compendium that I have collected. So it was at that time, people agreed that the matan, that text of the book, is very much authentic, because it has been extracted from two important books on hadith, that is Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So this book is basically the juristic explanation, and it traveled from Baghdad to Ma'ura al-Nahar, that is Transoxania or Central Asia, and then it came to Ghazni. From Ghazni it traveled to Lahore, and from Lahore to Delhi, and from Delhi itself it traveled to Kashmir in the 16th century. Is it clear? So this is the travel of this book, and this book is with us this time. Although it is not in the curriculum of Madaris, because after emergence of Darul Deoband and Nahdlatul Ulama, renowned scholars started curriculum design, and this book was dropped from the curriculum due to certain reasons which I will not disclose here. That what were the reasons that that book, which was written by Allama Sagani, was dropped from the curriculum. The book is named as Masharikul Anwar. We see that before initiation of Madaris in the Valley of Kashmir, this book was available with every peer family, almost, or those people who were the men of letters, or those people who were having the concern for hadith knowledge. Allama Anwar Shah Kashmiri himself has went through lines of this book, and he has been satisfied that the matan and the objective of this book is to serve the hadith, and the objective of this book is to initiate a process of the introduction of hadith to those learners who have not been acquainted with the high-fi methodology of hadith. तो ये किताब उनके लिए है जो बिगिनर्स है हदीस के लिए, और इस किताब ने कश्मीर का रुख 16वीं सदी में किया, और 16वीं सदी से लेकर आज तक इस किताब की जो इफादत है वो हरगिज कम नहीं हुआ। ये मुख्तसर सा खाका जो मैंने आपके सामने रखा, तो अब आप अभी यहाँ पे बहस एक आई थी कि कलहन ने, मैं सुन रहा था, कलहन ने मली छाज का तज़किरा किया है। मैं हिस्ट्री का स्टूडेंट नहीं हूँ, ना मुझे हिस्ट्री के किसी टॉपिक पे बोलने का अभी हक है, लेकिन मैं ये महसूस कर रहा हूँ कि जो हमारे क्रॉनिकल्स हैं इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री की, उनमें कुछ किताबें बहुत जामिया हैं, वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट एंड सिग्निफिकेंट। वन इज फुतुहुल बुल्दान and another is Mawjamul Buldan. If you will see in those two books, there has been a description of Al-Hind, the subcontinent, not India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, but this region was known as Al-Hind, as the region which was beyond the river Oxus was known as Maura Unnahar, and what was this side of the river was known as Kohistan. Then after Kohistan there was known as Hindu Kush, and from after Hindu Kush onwards it was known as the Hind. And so in Hind we see that there is a description At-Tabaqatul Ula mimman qasada al-Hind. At-Tabaqatul Ula mimman qasada al-Hind. The first band of the followers of the companions who initiated migration or who had a zeal of travel towards Al-Hind. And these are 44 people who have been reported that they have traveled to this part of the land in the time of second Caliph, Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala. But none of them reached Kashmir. None of them reached Kashmir, but it's reported that in Deoband, in Makrana, in Lahore, in Ghazni, these 44 people have been there, but none of them traveled to Kashmir. But it's also reported that some Turks, ये तुर्किस्तान है, ये टर्की नहीं है जो हम देख रहे हैं इस वक्त, जो रिपब्लिक ऑफ टर्की, इसके लोग नहीं, बल्कि जो चाइनीज टर्किस्तान है, सिंकियान, ये उसके बारे में कहा गया है कि जो टर्क्स, ये वो हम तुर्क बोलते हैं, इसका तज़किरा जो है मिनहाजुल हाँ उसमें किया, एग्जैक्ट.
In the chronicles Turkestan. That is not that Chinese Turkestan.
Yeah.
It's a very wider term.
The term Turk, not the term that's that. I'm not saying Chinese Turk, but I'm saying that the region, the wider region. So the author of this book, Allama Saghani, he has written this book for being a muhaddis and a very renowned traditionalist and faqih. He wrote this book, and this book was prepared for the beginners of hadith in the subcontinent. Now, our renowned scholar, Sheikh Yaqub Sarfi Rahmatullah Alayhi, when he was a student and when he became a muballigh, he used to deliver sermons on Jummah occasions, or he will begin his dars. He will begin his dars, and he would start from the Kitab al-Akhlaq of the Mashayikh al-Anwar. He would start his sermons, or he would start his dars with the part of this book, Mashayikh al-Anwar and Kitab al-Akhlaq. In Kitab al-Akhlaq, there are 120 ahadith which serve for the objective of initiating ethical derivatives of Islam to a learner of hadith. So before going to hadith, a learner must be well acquainted with the akhlaq, that what is ethics all about. And these 120 ahadith are commonly narrated in the books of Sahih, Bukhari, Muslim, and other books as well. But majority of the hadiths have been taken from the Bukhari and Muslim. So, Sheikh Yaqub Sarfi, while addressing his khutbahs or while addressing his sermons or giving lectures to his students, was acquainting them with the part of that book, Mashayikh al-Anwar, which was written 300 years before him, that is written by Saghani, that is Mashayikh al-Anwar. So this book has three important segments. One segment is Kitab al-Akhlaq, that is the part which deals and gives us a perfect and authentic information about those ahadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam which are related to the ethical aspect of life. Second part of this book is Ibadah, which is related to the objective of Ibadah, worship, and how it would be performed. And third part of this book is related to Muamalat, that how should we address our day-to-day and worldly affairs. Kashmir being, I mean to say, a new region to Islam in the 14th century, this book was of prime importance. And scholars at that time thought, let us not include other books of hadith. Let us include this book. Basically, it is a beginner's guide to hadith, and it will resolve two important issues. One, it will acquaint the learner with the message of Islam through a very instructing manner. That let's instruct him, let's give him the composition of akhlaq, then ibadah, and then muamalat. Other way around, if you will see the literature of hadith, there are the details of so many minute things, or those things which sometimes a teacher himself cannot understand. So, to give up the confusion, Sanani's book was introduced in the curriculum of the Sultanate period, and then it came by way of Ghazni, Lahore, and then it came to Delhi, and then it came to the Madaris of Kashmir in the 16th century of AD. So after that, we see in Amritsar, where Kashmiri students would go for instruction of the religious knowledge, Amritsar and Lahore. पार्टीशन के बाद ये मामला थोड़ा ठंडा हो गया, लेकिन उससे पहले अगर आप ये मालूम करेंगे कि हदीस के लिटरेचर में कौन सी किताब ज्यादा जो है तलबा में तकसीम की जाती थी या सिलेबस में होती थी, that is Masharikul Anwar. So Masharikul Anwar has a very prime importance in Kashmir, although it is not nowadays in the curriculum of the Madaris, but it has played its role, a vital role for the dissemination of the Hadith literature in India, especially in Kashmir in the times of the Sultanate period. That's Hazrat Sheikh Yaqub Sarfi, Rahmatullah alayhi. Thank you very much.
Comments are yes, please. Ideas will be history checks.
So you should hear those informative to us, interesting to us. Tam nazar yapmak ister. Tam not just kişen insan. So dilaş kararı yoksa mazurlardan zindagi. Most आपको जब अर्ज हुजूर वाला थोड़ा ही क्लिक मैं हुजूर शाबाश सर मौलवी साहब आपको जितना अर्ज ना little question question करें Yes, ये हदीस शरीयत की महीने वो कलेक्ट कर अप्रोच क्या उस कलेक्शन में उनका न्यूज़ पर ट्रेनिंग कलेक्ट मेथडोलॉजी क्या why कहाँ विजिट अगर न्यू कलेक्ट करें न्यू है ये कैसे हदीस ऊपर लक्षण में साफ है ना बुखारी से सब पर करना चाहिए मुस्लिम सब पर करना चाहिए तो क्या सिलेक्शन पर कहाँ दुनिया पर करना सिलेक्शन क्या क्या हो सिलेक्शन क्या क्या हो सकते बस मामूली क्वेश्चन और क्वेश्चन आंसर
The mic just
With due respect, I was talking about the structure of the book, Masharikul Anwar. This book has 155 chapters. It has been published from Karachi, from Delhi, and it has been published from Turkey also. The structure of the book is very simple: Akhlaq, Ibadah, and Muamalat, which a beginner should know. He must be confused with आपको यहाँ हाथ उठा के है कि यहाँ हाथ उठा के ड्रेस कोड पे उसमें उतना ज्यादा नहीं है अमलियात पे ज्यादा जोर है इल्मुल कलाम बहुत कम है इसमें वो मसाइल नहीं है जो कंफ्यूजन पैदा करे
बिल्कुल साहब आपको मैसेज बता रहे हैं पता है मैं कौन सा तरीका मैं काशी के आपके विशेष आप साहब मैं आपके नेचर के बारे में बात करी कोशिश करिए आप कैसे करेंगे उन्हें कौन सा मेथड अपनाया था वो बताइए अगर है पता तो बोल अगर नहीं तो रहने दीजिए
जो हदीसों में आपसे मैं अर्ज कर रहा सर मैं वही आपसे अर्ज कर रहा हूँ मैंने आपको बताया कि इस किताब की बुनियाद 3 चीजों पे है। एक है वो अहादीस जो रसूल अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने अखलाकियात के अबवाब के हवाले से जिक्र की। दूसरी अहादीस का इंतखाब उन्होंने जो मेथड पे मेथोडोलॉजी की बात कर रहा हूँ अहादीस का वो सेक्शन जो इबादत के साथ डील करता है और तीसरा सेक्शन वो है जो मामलात के साथ डील करता है। इसमें इन्होंने 2 हदीस की किताबों का ज्यादा तज़किरा किया है, एक सही बुखारी का एक सही मुस्लिम का। मेथोडोलॉजी वही है जो हमारे पास मौजूद है क्लासिकल और उसी एतबार से इन्होंने इन 2 किताबों से हदीस का इंतखाब करके इस किताब को तरतीब किया।
small point and just to caution है आज भी जो हमारे जेवन का लोगों का लेक्चर है जम्मू के they cannot be applied to medieval times जो स्ट्रक्चर है जोग्राफिया का नागरू का कंप्लीटली चेंज हो गया आपने वो तुर्किस्तान का कह दिया टर्किश या बेसिकली फ्रॉम प्रेजेंट डे सेंट्रल एशिया उसी के डिवीजन हो गए वही जो टर्की रीजन है these people have gone to and they are controlling their presently occupying their
सर एक अर्ज करूंगा मैं आपसे जो हमारे पास मावरा नहर की टर्म है तो आपने कहा
मैं बात मावरा जरूर तो मैं समझता हूं मावरा वो तो सबकॉन्टिनेंट के लिए या एरिया के लिए वो सेंट्रल में तुर्किस्तान की टर्क सर ओरिजिनली लोकेटेड जो हिस्टोरिकली और तुर्किस्तानी को कॉलोनियल एरा में डिवाइड किया गया नाम दिए गए हैं
They are more Mongol, they are Caspian, they Caucasus. The Mongol island as a research the sense of it is
सर यहाँ पे सर प्लीज आप एक बात सर मैंने किताब पढ़ी है अल कंद फी जिक्र उलमाए समरकंद अल कंद फी जिक्र उलमाए समरकंद ये किताब का नाम है उन मुहद्दिसीन के बारे में उन जुरिस्टों के बारे में जिनका ताल्लुक समरकंद से उस किताब का आगाज कैसे है ये मैं आपको एक शेर बताता हूँ उलमाउल इस्लाम कानून हुदूरन वका वसमाउल हुदूर तुर्किस्तान अब ये तुर्किस्तान एक रीजन है उसमें जितने भी लोग आते हैं उन्होंने तुर्किस्तान को उसी के मफहूम में इस्तेमाल
Maar खास रियासत के साथ पाकिस्तान से दे मंगोल आइलैंड दूसरी तरफ नहीं तब रियासत उनका
वो रीजन है वो रीजन है I want you want to buy a easy one.
Anybody else want to comment? Probably you have something in your something is bothering you. I know. Thank you, Shaka sir.
Thank you, sir.
हो रहा है महेश जिन्होंने मैं शाका सर को थैंक यू कर रहा था महेश am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hi.
You are audible, sir.
ऐसे टेक्नोलॉजी बार किया था
खाकी साहब बुला लेते ज्यादा बेटर था महेश।
महेश
Sir, namaskar.
hello good afternoon how are you doing
I am good, sir. How are you?
it is very Delhi is very polluted right now I hope you are
Yes,
inside
sir.
environment
Yes, sir.
And Mahesh should be touching upon first. Mahesh is our frequent visitor to our center. Center study, whenever we have seminar, whenever we have opportunity. I don't know. But I'm seeing it now, maybe after 3-4 years, Mahesh, is it true? That too digitally. You have storage system? Mahesh, have you unmuted your?
Yes,
Are we
sir.
audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir. Can you hear me?
आवाज है सुने बात है ना और जे जेन्यू पर हाई फाई ना जीवन
सर आप बात कीजिए थोड़ी.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
जोर मान सुनो
शायद आवाज नहीं जा रही है महेश इधर से।
सर अभी आवाज आ रही है सर? Can you hear me, sir?
No, we can see you but no voice.
लेकिन मेरे तरफ से वॉइस तो ठीक है.
हाँ उधर से नहीं, हम लोग है ठीक है, उन लोगों का प्रॉब्लम है.
Okay.
From their side.
Okay. Okay.
Mahesh,
Yes, sir.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Namaskar.
Welcome. Mahesh,
Sir, can you hear me, sir?
yeah, बिल्कुल where you are now.
Yes, sir.
Mahesh is a
Yes,
faculty at Center for International Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And we welcome him. He'll be touching upon reformist and technological movements in medieval Xinjiang.
Yes, sir.
Case study of Xinjiang order.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank
Mahesh,
you.
start your presentation, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. I am thankful to the organizers, especially Professor Khaki, sir. And as far as my paper goes, it throws light on the evolution and the prevalence of Naqshbandi order and its major offshoots, in addition to discussing its popularity in Central Asia and its spillover effects in Xinjiang. And before analyzing the Naqshbandi order, it is important to highlight the role of Yasavi order that preceded the Naqshbandiya. The earliest of the Sufi orders that mushroomed in Central Asia between the 12th and the 17th century was Yasaviya, which was founded in Xinjiang later on and played a major role in spreading Sufi Islam among the nomadic Turkic tribes of Central Asia. The Yasaviya order founded by Khoja Ahmad Yasavi continued to be influential for several centuries afterwards. The Naqshbandi order owes its allegiance to the theory and practice of Yasaviya and its mystic school of Khazagaon near Bukhara, that is in the present Uzbekistan. Founded by Bahauddin Naqshband Bukhari, the Naqshbandi order gradually spread eastward into India and westward into Turkey. The word Naqshbandi is Persian, taken from the name of its founder, with different meanings such as related to the image maker, related to the pattern maker, reformer of patterns, reformer of way of the chain, or the golden chain. There have been major Sufi orders and sub-orders worldwide in addition to Yasaviya and Naqshbandiya, such as Naqshbandiya Mujadidiya, Khalidi, Khufiya, Jahariya, Fakiya, Ishakiya, Qadiri, Chishti, Makhdumzada, Sohrawadi, and Kalandari across the globe in some form or other at some point of time. At the beginning of 17th century, Naqshbandiya's major offshoot, the Mujadidiya, came to prominence in the Turkish, Arab, and Central Asia regions. In the early 19th century, the Khalidi branch of Mujadidi order was popular in the Ottoman Empire and further in the Caucasus, Indonesia, Western Europe, and Northern America. In addition to the Qadiriya, the Qadiriya Sufi order was widespread in Egypt, Turkey, and India. Its founder, Abdul Qadir, was regarded as the founder of system involving rites and practices, or as a worker of miracles. He eventually became the most popular saint in Sufi Islam. Most of the aforesaid Sufi orders or sub-orders were preached and practiced in Central which will be discussed in the coming few minutes. Central Asian Sufism underwent the greatest and finest development in 14th century. The leaders of the orders, living and dead, were treated almost as saints, and their disciples, whether out of respect or fear, did not address them directly by their personal names. In conversations with other devotees, they replaced the taboo personal name with Ishan, and this gradually evolved into the name used for the leaders of the orders, appearing first amongst the Naqshbandi order and adopted later by other Sufi orders. Because of the efforts of Bahadin, the Naqshbandi order gained strength rapidly in Fargana, Bukhara, Samarkand, and Herat. Further, the matrimonial relationship established between the Naqshbandis and the families of local rulers helped the Naqshbandis accumulating land and rights for the support of Sufi shrines, schools, and religious work. The Yasavi and Naqshbandi orders were powerful, with growing religious and political influence in the Mongol imperial period, and afterwards, from the 15th century onwards, the Ahrari and the Juberi suborders of Naqshbandiya became more active and achieved power, pelf, and prominence under the Turco-Mongol Shibanid Uzbeks. The Naqshbandi order was popular among the Kyrgyz and in the oasis of the Tarim Basin from the 15th century onwards. Bahadin's most important and worthy successor was Khwaja Ahrar, who established the Ahrari order. And Ahrar not only assisted Timurid rulers Abu Said and Sultan Ahmad, but also maintained contacts with the rulers of Mogolistan, which was known as Eastern Chagatai Khanate, through a network of his own disciples and followers. Thus, the wealth and land holdings of the Naqshbandi order expanded through charitable endowments, that is known as Waqf, and family businesses in Samarkand and Herat. The influence of the Ahraris, followers of Ahrar are known as Ahraris, continued under the Shibanid Uzbeks, who displaced the Timurids from Transoxiana in 1500 AD. When Khwaja Ahrar became head of the Naqshbandi order, Central Asia was dominated by the Naqshbandis. The Naqshbandi order had the largest following among any of the Sufi orders by the end of 19th century. The teachings of the Naqshbandiya and Mujadidiyya were introduced to Central Asia soon after it had been established by Khwaja Ahmad Sirindi in India between the end of 17th century and the mid-18th century. Ahmad Sirindi, also known as Mujadidi Alf-e-Thani, holds a very special and significant position among the Muslim divines of medieval India. He played the most important role in disseminating the ideology and practices of the Naqshbandi order in India, and Mughal Emperor Jahangir found Sirindi's disciples in every city of his empire. For centuries, he has been considered one of the most outstanding Sufi teachers and thinkers. Sheikh Najmuddin Kubra, a famous representative of Sufism in Central Asia, was a scholar who left behind him a rich legacy. His teachings, called as Kubraviya or Jahabiya, golden teaching, have had a great impact on the spiritual life not only in Khorasan but in the entire Islamic world. The heritage of the well-known Fargana poet Sufi Abd al-Aziz Masdub Namangani is also important to mention herewith. Namangani was the disciple of Khalifa Hussain, a famous figure of the Naqshbandiya Mujadidiyya. Furthermore, Namangani's lineage was linked to practices which were inspired by the Kalandariya order. Namangani had confessed his lineage was the mixture of the tradition of Naqshbandiya and Kalandaria. It is important to note herewith that Namangan's protege, Igrachi Ishan became the well-known name in Naqshbandi order in Xinjiang in 19th and 20th century. While looking at the evolution of the Naqshbandi order in China, that traveled eastwards in the Gansu and became the most powerful of all Sufi movements in China, first under the name of Khufia. Its branches and the multicolored mosque Menhuan of Ma Laichi was probably the earliest Naqshbandi order in China. The Jahiriya order of Ma Mingxin, which was a rival branch of the Naqshbandi order, was also prevalent at that point of time. It is important to mention herewith that the Sufi organization which evolved within China were an integral part of developments that were affecting the whole Muslim world, including Xinjiang. Joseph Fletcher, a well-known Western scholar who had studied Islam in China with a significant focus on the evolution of Naqshbandi in Xinjiang, dates the earliest appearances of the Naqshbandi order in China back to the 14th or 15th century. According to him, traders from west of the Pamirs and the Transoxania brought the Naqshbandi order into the Altasahar region, which is known as which comprises the South Xinjiang region, the cities of Kashgar, Hotan, Yarkand, Yangi Hisar, Uch Turfan, and Akshu. Where Sufism of Yesavi school was popular in this region at that point of time. During the 15th century AD, the Naqshbandi order replaced the Yesaviya order in the Tarim Basin region, also among the nomads. Further, Sufi adepts from the Altasahar maintained their links with the Naqshbandi population of Transoxania and regularly studied in Bukhara. While studying the Naqshbandi order in Xinjiang, the Naqshbandi branch had established deeper roots in Xinjiang and then moved towards northeast Tibet and western China and spread further east into the Hui communities of Ningxia and Gansu in northwestern China. Islam replaced Buddhism as the dominant faith in Kashgar area and spread across the oases in the Altasahar region in the form of Central Asian Sufism from the Fargana Valley, mainly influenced by the Naqshbandi. Sufis were instrumental in spreading their form of Islam among the Turkic and the Mongol nomads along the Kazakh steppe in Chungaria, the Tienshan and the Pamir, and throughout Central Asia. The Naqshbandi order was popular among the Kyrgyz and in the oasis of the Tarim Basin from 15th century onwards. And the main characteristics of the Naqshbandi order in South Xinjiang included A Sharist orthopraxy, B. Political activism, C. Propagation of religion, that is Islam, and D. A strong Sunni orientation, E. Popular mysticism or saint worship, and D. F. Tomb worship. Early traces of Naqshbandiya in Altasahar go back to the late 14th or early 15th century, and Xinjiang witnessed the rise and the growth of several orders and sub-orders of the Naqshbandi order such as Arhari, Maghdumzadeh, Ishakiya, and Afakiya. The Aharari order propagated by Khoja Aharar, who popularized the Aharari order, had tremendous contribution for the spread of Naqshbandi order in Xinjiang. Aharar propagated and popularized the order among the Uyghurs, besides inhabiting the vast areas between Turfan, Chiaoguan Fort in Gansu. Aharar's grandson, Muhammad Yusuf and Muhammad Nura, made considerable efforts to popularize this order in Altasahar region, that is the South Xinjiang region. Disciples of great Sufi masters continued to spread the noble gospel of Naqshbandi order in the region. For instance, Khoja Aharar's two famous disciples, Tajuddin Kataki and Ahmad Kasani, were instrumental in the development of Naqshbandi order in Xinjiang. The Holy Family of Kucha, the Kataki, was the first to convert the Mongol ruler to Islam, transformed itself into Naqshbandiya and adopted the title of Hoja or Khoja. The Naqshbandis of the Tarim region kept close connections with their colleagues in Transoxania, and many set out westward to study with its great masters. Prominent among them were the Saduddin of Kashgar, the founder of major Naqshbandi line in Herat, and Tajuddin Kataki. Tajuddin was also a direct descendant of Jamal and Arshaduddin, the father and son sheikhs who a century earlier had converted Tughlaq Temir and Mughals to Islam. Arshad's line of Sufi masters, probably originally Yesavi, had in the early 15th century transformed itself into a line of Naqshbandi saints and continued to promote Islam not only in the oasis but among the nomads of Xinjiang. Ahmad Kasani or Makhdum-e-Azam. Yeah,
Mahesh,
yeah,
sum it up within 4-5 minutes would be grateful to you.
yeah, I will add.
Because there's a line of this paper readers around, they have been, they are
I will take,
the lunchtime is also,
I will take 2-3 minutes only, sir. And Kashgar became the center of flourishing Naqshbandi order. It remained the main hub of Naqshbandi order as it was the main learning center of Buddhism between 3rd and 8th century AD. The Naqshbandi order is known to have been prevailing in Kashgar since the 12th century AD. In Kashgar, Makhdumzada branch of Naqshbandi order not only advised the Khans and proselytized but ultimately took power in their own right. The Naqshbandi masters like Khoja Ahrar, Ahmad Kasani, Khoja Afaq, and Ishaq Ali all had contributed to the spread of Naqshbandi order in Kashgar. Khoja Afaq was a prominent figure in the Kashgar area until the 1670s and was believed to have served Kashgar's governor Khan Abdullah, whose capital was Yarkand. However, Afaq had to face the wrath of Ishaqiya order, and Abdullah's son Ismail Khan, along with Ishaqiya, drove Khoja Afaq out of Kashgar, who fled to Kashmir and then to Lhasa, where he sought the Dalai Lama's intervention. Similarly, Khoja Ishaq Ali was the founder of Ishaqiya order in Kashgar. Several Turkish and Swedish and English travelers had given accounts about the Sufi lodges, that is, in Khankas of Kashgar, the names of Ishan and details of their practices. The most important Sufi Khanka in 19th and 20th century Kashgar was a Naqshbandi one, set up by the Sufi master Igarchi Ishan, originally from Fargana. Igarchi Ishan's lineage belongs to the heritage of the well-known Fargana poet and Sufi Abdul Aziz Mazdub Namangani. Igarchi Ishan was one of the 4 representatives of Namangani who introduced the ideas of Naqshbandi lineage in Aksu, Kashgar, Yarkand, and Hotan cities of South Xinjiang. Igarchi was a Sufi trained in the Naqshbandiya Jahriya path. According to the Chinese sources, Igarchi lived as a beggar and a mendicant, roaming from place to place before settling by a mazar called Abdu Jageri Mazar outside Kashgar. I had the opportunity to visit this mazar in 2017, which is in a dilapidated state right now. By the end of Qing rule in 1910, Igarchi Ishan's order was the most influential Sufi lineage in Kashgar, along with control over many Waqf endowments. As per observations made by the Swedish missionaries in 1905 and 1925, Igarchi was a very ascetic Ishan, being venerated by many followers. To conclude, it is found from the above analysis that the Naqshbandi order and its other sub-orders have been prominent and popular during the medieval period and later on till the initial part of the 20th century. Amidst the rise and growth of new reformist and theological movements of Islam, such as Wahhabism in 18th century, Salafism in late 19th century, and Jadidism in late 19th and early 20th century, the Naqshbandi order remained the most famous and widespread Sufi orders in Xinjiang. At present, Naqshbandi branches are found in most parts of the Muslim world, Central Asia, India, the Middle East, the Caucasus, and the Far East, but also in Western Europe and North America. And in addition to that, Pakistan, Turkey, Cyprus, and Uzbekistan. Palestine, Egypt, Dagestan, and Western China and Northern Tibet are some of the places where Naqshbandi, the traces of Naqshbandi orders are found. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind attention.
Anybody who want to interact with Mahesh? No. Then we have the last speaker, Muhammad Irfan Shah, research scholar, Department of Islamic Studies. Role of Sufism, the aim. Role of Sufism linking Central Asia and Kashmir, exploring the pioneering Sohrawardiya Sufi immigrants from Central Asia, 14th to 15th century. Are you in AMU or you are here somewhere in the Kashmir and want
No,
to
he's here.
have the luxury of your home?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, actually, I am in Kashmir, but due to some reason, I couldn't make it there. So I apologize for that thing.
Let's speak for 10 minutes and we can have some sort of discussion.
I would like to present a brief, what I can say, abstract of my paper, consuming on
Yes.
just 5 minutes, inshallah Rahman.
8 minutes. Inshallah, can submit it, take 8 minutes. On it.
Am I allowed to continue, sir?
Go ahead.
Yes. Esteemed chairperson, other dignitaries, my revered teacher, Dr. Shaukat Hussain, maybe he is present there, and other learned scholars. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the title of my paper is Role of Sufis in Linking Central Asia and Kashmir, exploring the pioneering Sohrawardiya Sufi immigrants from Central Asia. So I would like to present a brief assessment of the paper and the personalities under discussion. I have chosen 3 personalities. One is Sayyid Sharafuddin Bulbul Shah. Second is Sayyid Muhammad Isfahani, popularly known as Jambaz Wali. And third is Sayyid Ahmad Kirmani. And all these 3 personalities, they are what I can say associated with Sohrawardiya order. First of all, I would like to...
You are not visible. You are not visible.
Yes.
Jakurat kya tha na laptop?
Sir, okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Video kar
Okay, sir. So first of all, I would like to highlight the methodological problem in discussing the Sufis that have visited Kashmir between 14th and 16th century. The problem is actually that we do not have direct access to the sources regarding these 3 centuries, that is 14th century and the it's a problem thing. With us, from historical point of view, that is Kalhana's Raj Tarangini. And even Stein, he laments and he laments on the reticence of Kalhana in relating the Muslim, in relating the development of Islam and emergence of Islam in Kashmir during his times. So, first of all, there is, yes, sir. That's what. So there should be no question. There should be no question regarding the connection of Central Asia with Kashmir prior to 14th century. I mean, before the coming of Bulbul Shah, and it is an established fact, and I don't think there needs to be any discussion regarding that. And now coming to the Sayyid Sharafuddin Bulbul Shah Rahmatullah, he came in during the tenure of Rinchana. He converted Rinchen Shah, and everyone is known the thing is subsequent to that. The point is here that Bulbul Shah was the first, he is the first recorded Sufi. He belonged to Sohrawardiya Sufi order. He came to Kashmir, converted the reigning king, and he was the first to establish the first Khanqa in Kashmir. After him, after a gap of 100 years, a century, almost a century, comes another Sohrawardi saint. His name is Sayyid Muhammad Isfahani, popularly known as Jambaz Wali. And Sayyid Muhammad Isfahani, he was sponsored by the state. His Khanqa was sponsored by the state. He established Khanqa, and even the Hindus used to call him Annapurna, the food giver.
he used it to distribute food, and he was known for his well much known for his philanthropic services during that in the 16th century, in the 15th century. After him comes after a gap of 100 years, we see coming from Kirman, Sayyid Ahmad Kirmani Rahmatullah Alayh. He reinvigorates the Suhrawardi order in Kashmir. The point is that during these 3 centuries, the Suhrawardiya Sufis, they didn't came alone just as individual personalities, but they came along with the culture, religion, and language of the regions where from they came. For example, Bulbul Shah, he came from Turkestan, and the 2 Sufis, Jambaz Wali and Sayyid Ahmad Kirmani, they came from the 2 prominent cities of Iran. One is Kirman and second is Isfahan. So, and also these Suhrawardi Sufis, since they are known for establishing good and cordial relations with the rulers. And we see all these 3 Sufis, they were having cordial and friendly relations with the rulers of their times, and that is why their khanqahs, their hospices, they were fully supported by the state. They received state patronage. Secondly, and it can be stated that for example, the establishment of mosques, establishment of madrasas by these Sufis, and in particular the establishment of khanqahs, it reflects it reflects the common mystic heritage between Kashmir and Central Asia that was introduced and subsequently perpetuated by these Suhrawardiya Sufis. And we see that Suhrawardi order that is developed, that originated from Suhraward city, suburb of Iran. We see that it came directly, this mystic strand, that it was introduced directly from Central Asia to Kashmir. So it can be said that the Sufis played a pioneering role, and they played an outstanding role in connecting, in fortifying the strong links between Central Asia and Kashmir. These Sufis, in fact, they served as strong links between Central Asia and Kashmir, and it was because of these and other Sufis. For example, the Kubrawiya Sufis. Kubrawiya Sufi order is also a branch of, it is a sub-order of Suhrawardiya Sufis. Now, my point is that these Sufis, they introduced the Central Asian culture, language, and traditions in Kashmir, and that is where we see that in Kashmir, it is reflected as we see Kashmir, there is a taste and tint of Central Asian culture and tradition rather than of Indian subcontinent. That is in its proximity. Thank you for your patiently listening. And my only the August learning is while dealing with the historical sources, we have a lot of what I can say the hagiographical sources. We have 80% of the material is that is
There's a question for you from the audience. Please listen carefully and then respond.
Hello?
Thanks for this presentation. My question is regarding the historicity of the presence of Muslims in Kashmir. As you said, there is an established fact that there was no Muslim presence before the Bulbul Shah. But the moment when we are talking about, as you started with the Kalhan's Raj ceremony, I am telling you about the 7th and the 8th Kalhan's Raj ceremony. He says that the Wajagat is related. He is a son of the Lalita. That at that time already the Sindh was conquered by the Muslims, as we have a historicity about that region, and Muslim rule was there. He said that the Muslims were at that time present in Kashmir because Islam was at that time a dominant culture in the Sindh. And related to Wajagat, he says that he sold many men to the Malichas and introduced the certain practices in the country which defeated these Malichas, and it was obviously the Muslim presence. So you need to revisit this first. Secondly, my question is related to you is basically Islam as the conversion was made by the Bulbul Shah, then why it was not the Suhrawardiyas but the Kubri Messages who are credited with the mass conversion in Kashmir? So is there any philosophical, we can say, diversion or differences that the Suhrawardiyas were not able to get the mass conversion but the Kubrabis? So I want to respond from your side, Sush.
आपके लिए थोड़ा सा कहूँगा सिर्फ इस्लाम के only
Baba Sir Sherman sir was Pachakran. Hana Sujao Pasir se overall.
8 centuries.
Actually, I couldn't understand the question from the worthy. I don't know who has posed the question. I would like some of my teachers could respond to this question.
Irfan, if you have.
Yes, sir.
Your teacher will respond. Okay. And who is that? Teacher Shakir.
Sir, I am everyone present there. I feel I am their student. Anyone can respond because I couldn't get this question. There is some problem in what I can listening to this question.
That's the problem in this digital world. That is, that's why we prefer all this face-to-face or family contacts. We can
Yes, sir.
give you that option. Fine. Thank you very much for being with us. And MCR. Good day.